I'm Tom. I make electronic music under the name Bamboo Leaves. I'm going to be breaking down a little deep house, lo-fi house track that I've made in the hopes that you can see some useful or creative mixing techniques to help you with your own tracks. Make sure to subscribe if you like this video so that you can get other tutorials as I make them. So let's break down this track. Okay, so that's a run through of the track. You know, it's kind of comes up into two sections. So we've got the first part where we have some more drums and some sort of hi-hats and it's a bit more going on. And then the second half, it kind of drops into a bit more of a breakdown, adds a bit more mood, a little bit more grit to sort of the occasion. It's nice to have a little bit of a transition there just to sort of show you those two elements of it. So what I'll do is I'll start by going from the top and working down and pointing out any techniques or mixing things that I think are relevant as I go. We have these two tracks at the top, and this is the vinyl and tape hiss. It's just a couple of samples that I've got from somewhere. So I haven't done too much processing. We can see that these two tracks here are being sent to bus 11. I've got over here, I've got a crackle bus. So just on this crackle bus, what I have is I have a bit of sidechain that's been provided by the LFO tool. I have some EQ, which is cutting out all the low end and a bit of the high end, sort of a nice band pass. I want to make sure that the top end was being rolled off so we get like a less prominent hiss. And taking off the top edge makes it a bit more lo-fi, a little bit deeper, a little bit moodier. And then what we've got is the crackle bus. We have this delay, so I wanted to spread the signal fully left and right. And so I've just got the sample delay in Logic and we split it and we have the left that's not delayed and the right that's delayed by a small amount. That pushes it right out. I wanted to make sure that they weren't interfering with the mix. So what we'll do is have a listen to this. You might not be able to hear it because it's quite quiet, but let's see. Yeah, that's really quiet. That is not particularly audible, but you know, it's just meant to sit there. It's want to add a little bit of mood to the track. So with the sort of the lo-fi, sort of deep, moody element, I wanted to kind of bring in that sort of that tape hiss that you might hear. Okay, so what we've got third, we've got this reverse cymbal. So in the transition, as we're leading up, I have this, this basically is just a crash cymbal. It's just a standard crash cymbal sample that I've reversed and then just applied some sort of simple processing to, but it creates quite a nice dark transition feel that I'm quite happy with. So let's have a listen to that now. On that one, we just have an echo, so a standard 1/8 note, quite a high feedback, quite a high wet echo that's just, you know, going on there. And then we have again the sort of band pass where we have rolling off the low ends to stop any potential low end rumble to clear out the mix, and then taking off that top end to make it a bit darker, a little bit moodier. We don't want too much high end in this track. What I've also got is I've got a send to bus 1. Bus 1 is a reverb, so it's some, for me, I've got this Valhalla reverb. I've got it on quite a long decay, fully wet in the mix. Moving on to the next part. Underneath this, we have the drum section. So what I'll do is I'll solo the drums so we can have a listen to them. I like to do my drums where I actually pull the audio samples onto the timeline. I don't tend to do through a drum sampler and programming in through MIDI, but it's the same thing. It's just I prefer to have the control of the audio directly in the editor. It won't sound any different this way. What I've done, let's start with the kick drums. We've got your standard 808. Nothing fancy about that, just a nice 808. I rolled off the top end of that one. I just wanted to take out that click at the top of the 808 there. And what else I have on there is some compression, Not doing too much, but it's just sort of reining in some of those dynamic frequencies. I have a second kick that comes in and it gives a bit of a rolling beat. So you have your 4/4, and then we have this second 808 that comes in and sort of goes dun 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 dun. Yeah, we'll have a listen to that now. For the second lower rolling one, I have taken a lot more of the top end out, so made it thicker, and I've also I've brought the level down, so you have a bit more of a pump, you have a little bit more of a roll. So instead of like dun 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 dun, it's more like the dun 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 dun, and then I've also got some compression on that as well. Moving on, we've got some hi-hats here. Nothing really to add. You can see how they're being positioned on the grid. I ended up just going onto the grid, onto the 16ths or onto the 8ths, because yeah, it was it just felt a bit more appropriate for the genre. In terms of processing, not much. I've just got the high and low rolls to just keep the frequencies in check. I've also got a bit of a reverb bus on the first hi-hat, just to add a little bit more depth to the sound. That's quite subtle. There's not too much going on with those. Moving on, next we have the percussion. This is some sample from 909 sample pack that I've bought. What have I got on there? I've got reverb again, and I'm just rolling off the low ends. So let's have a listen to that. So that bit just adds a little bit of more interesting groove to the beat. Right, okay, moving on, we have two claps. So we have a standard 909 clap, and I have also got an 808 clap in there. So the 909, it happens on every other beat, so clap as you would do with a standard house beat. Also got a fade out going on each of these claps to make it really sort of short and snappy. And then on the fourth in the bar, I have an 808 clap that has some reverb, and I've pushed them left and right. So we have sort of the claps down the middle, and then we have a clap that's nice and wide that gives sort of a bit more oomph to it. Cool. What I will just show you is a little bit of the extra processing that I've done on these drums. So in the mixer at the bottom, you can see that I have bussed each of the outputs of all of these drums to bus 10. So bus 10 I have as my drum bus. That's where I've applied some additional processing to all of them to glue the drums together, and I wanted to then squash them a little bit and sort of process them as a whole to take a little bit of the edge off and to sort of add a little bit more lo-fi element to it. So what we've got a compressor, a long attack and a long release EQ. So I'm just sort of leveling out, doing a bit more fine tuning to the EQs at this point. So I've just sort of taken a little bit of the low kick out a bit too much, boosting that mid range, and then completely rolling off the absolute top end, because that's kind of the sound that I'm going for, the deeper lo-fi sound. I've also applied a really subtle amount of drive to these drums. It kind of adds a little bit more crisp, a little bit more crunch and saturation to add some nicer harmonics on top of that. I've added a Soothe 2, so this isn't a standard plugin that you might get. It's kind of subtractive EQ. It's sort of taking out the sort of harsh resonances. This isn't necessary, but for me it adds to a nicer mix. I'll play the drum bus with and without all of that processing. I don't know if you noticed much of a difference there, but it took out the crisp of the sound, made it a bit crunchier and a little bit more driven. What I want to show next is the chords. The core musical element to this track is this sort of lo-fi Rhodes chord sample that I have, and it's just a simple chord but I've applied a bit of processing to it to make it sort of fit in with the style of the track, and I've pitched it around. But yeah, let's have a listen to just that chord. So to me, that has got a really nice pitch fluctuation, that has like some nice movement to the sound. I've added a little bit of compression just to take those sort of erroneous dynamics out of it. Nothing too much crazy on that one. You can see I've gone quite heavy with the EQ. I've taken out a lot of the top end, and then I've also, the low end, I've taken out the absolute sub, because I want to leave room for that 808 kick that's got quite a good amount of sub itself and fills that part of the frequency range. And then again, I've got the LFO tool doing my side chaining on every beat. We have the sidechain that's kicking in. I think an important part of this, when I've been making it, is that I've made the sidechain really deep and really fast. It will take out a lot, nearly everything from the sound, but it will also return really quickly. So you just let that snap of the kick run through. But it's not so much as like another dance genres where you might have like a slower like. But for this one, it's like a that fits well into the genre, and I feel like when I was playing around with it, that gave the best groove. So let's have a listen with and without the processing on that track. So it doesn't sound too different, apart from, a little bit of the EQ and the LFO tool obviously coming in with that side chaining. You could achieve a very similar effect with standard sidechain compression or any other volume automation. I really like the LFO tool because it has a lot of control, and I can get those really quick, deep, snappy sidechain hits. I appreciate having that flexibility. Moving on, now I've got a little bit of MIDI, something that I've added, complete onto the track. I've got these little echoey delay bloops. So what I'll do is I will solo this, and then I'll break it down. For this, what I have done, I have pulled up a quick sampler in Logic, and basically it is just the default. With the quick sampler, you get this sample of some sine waves. What I've done here is I've messed around with the filter. So I have got a cutoff filter that is, as the note plays, it will flip up and down using a sort of filter and a attack and decay envelope, using an attack and delay envelope to quickly give a little bit of a whip to the sound, to give that sort of whoop, whoop, whoop. So what I'll do is I'll play just without any of the extra processing on it, and I'll play just a little bit. I have to apologise for the hissing. My laptop is going a bit crazy with all the things I'm trying to record at once, but yeah, that's how it is, that's how it has to be. Right, anyway. Yeah, so that's me just playing them on my keyboard. So without any of that processing on it, let's have a listen. What we have is processing on these. We have some compression, we have some echo, we have some channel EQ that is just taking out the low end again. We have some reverb, and then we have again that LFO tool that's doing the sidechaining on it. I could have put this all to a bus and sidechained it as one, but there wasn't too many tracks involved here, so I didn't really mind putting one in each of the tracks that I needed. Okay, so yeah, this is how it sounds again with all of those effects on. So just really subtle, just sitting in the background, adding a little bit more texture to the track. Moving on, we've got the swoop chords. So these chords, they make use of the same sample that is the initial chord, and I've dragged that into a sampler. And what I've done is I've applied a filter that does something quite similar to the bloops, and it just sort of does a really quick envelope. It will whip and it will just open the filter and close the filter and give like a woof kind of sound. And then I've added processing on that. I've pushed it nice and wide, and it's sort of low in the mix just so that it just adds like a little bit of extra to the track. Let's have a listen to it on its own. Okay, again, I have the quick sampler for this one. I've taken one of those chords, I've brought in the sample start a little bit further from the beginning, and I've got a filter that will just, it just has the cutoff, and using this attack and decay envelope, it just opens and closes the filter really quickly, so we can probably see it if I press play. Yeah, on top of that, that is going to a reverb bus with a nice long decay, so it's nice and lush and big sounding. I've taken out some of that low end again, and I've put that sample delay again that is just pushing the sound really wide. We have the chords that are splashed down the middle, we have the bloops that are a little bit dotting about, and then we have the swoop chords that are really wide, so they're sitting outside, and it kind of gives a good stereo feel in the track. So now we'll move on to the next, which is those sort of really deep, classic sounding, deep house vocals, sort of like pitched down, manipulated, and sort of zooming about. Again, I have just taken sort of a really short vocal snippet, just a one shot, sort of just saying a small phrase. I've cut a little bit out of that, and then I have each of them, and in the pitch at the top, I have pitched this one up 14 steps, and then that changes with one of the other ones down here where I've gone plus 9 steps. So that is sort of instantly taking the sound and sort of manipulating it. What I've done from there is I've added Logic's vocal transformer, where I've taken the formant down really low, so we've got -18, sort of messes with those harmonics. It gives it like a deep sort of weird manipulated sound. And then what I've done is I've pitched the sound back down 12 steps, so I'm actually pitching it up with the actual audio by, you know, nearly an octave, maybe over an octave, and I'm pitching it back down, and that sort of messes with the sound further, so sort of it mangles the audio, and it sort of messes around with it. So I'll take all of the processing off, and we can have a listen to it with just the standard Logic pitching. So now I'll add that vocal transformer back in. So you can hear it kind of like jittering about. It's because I've been pitching it up and down so much, it's getting a little bit confused, and things are being stretched and pushed back together, and it's kind of giving a weird little stuttery sound, and I think it's quite nice aesthetic sounding. Yeah, so next on the processing bus, we just have some, again, a bandpass EQ to really sort of hone down on a specific set of frequencies. With some overdrive, we're just adding a little bit of drive onto that sound. Compression, keeping it really flat sounding, so it's not sort of jumping out too much. I've got a Valhalla reverb with quite a fairly modest decay, but quite heavy wet dry mix. LFO tool, so we're just doing the sidechain again. That's just the sidechain. And then the interesting sort of element, we have Logic's tremolo. In the default settings, it actually acts as a left-right stereo sort of tremolo, so it actually pushes the signal left and right rather than a single up and down. It's more pushing it left and right. So we'll have a listen with and without that. And now with it. So if you've got headphones on, you'll be able to hear that panning left and right. So that adds a nice sort of extra dimension to the track. That takes us to the end of the breakdown. One thing to note that I've added onto here is that I've got this differentiation between the first half and the second half, where it kind of breaks down a little bit. I think that's quite a good technique to use in the sort of the deep house, or just generally sort of bits of electronic music, is to take things away, and it kind of keeps it interesting, and it actually kind of adds more depth to the track when you remove bits of percussion or instrumentation from the track. So what I'll do is I'll just play that once more through. Thanks for sticking it out to the end. I'm hoping that was useful, at least a little bit. Yeah, had a little bit of fun making that. I don't really make this kind of thing, but it's actually, you know, it was quite good. It was quite nice to sort of learn to make other bits of genres and sort of push your techniques a little bit further. If you've got any questions about any of that, put it in the comments. I'll try and answer them if I can. A lot of these things are transferable from Logic to Ableton to FL Studio, whatever you're using. Again, if you enjoyed this, make sure to subscribe to any more videos I'm going to be putting out on this type of thing. Yeah, thanks for watching. See you next time. Envelope.